It is time. It's time to stop hiding. It's time to stand up. It's time for Christians to come together, to share their testimony, to inspire hope, and to join their brothers and sisters as we answer the call. Folks, it's time to wake up the lions. And we have a lion with us here today. Please welcome to the podcast, podcast host and author, NaRon Tillman. How you doing, NaRon?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
I appreciate you coming on today. I also, when I said podcast host and author, I left off that you're also a pastor. So
Yes.
it's kind of an important thing to talk about there. Naran, I know we have all kinds of stuff we can get into here, brother. And yeah, you've been on one of my other podcasts, and I had a great time talking to you. And I really do appreciate you coming back on this one. And go ahead and tell everybody, though, who doesn't know you, because we have a whole different audience for this podcast. Who is Naran Tillman? What are you about, and how's God influenced your life, brother?
Well, I grew up in Queens, New York, in a small town in the city called Far Rockaway. We grew up in what they called the housing projects, Beach 40th Street housing projects, single parent household. My dad actually was a preacher, but he wound up separating with my mom when we were young. I grew up with my grandmother dragging me to church in the midst of this war on drugs era.
Hmm.
That was that time. So it was a the dichotomy of my upbringing. Friday nights at the party, Saturday nights at the party. Grandma like, yo, you still got to go to church. And then she gave me a choice after a certain age, and I found myself after she had passed that I would never go back to church again. I didn't. I felt like she was mistreated, and something about faith and the seniors, they can see past that. But when you're young and you feel like somebody's doing some harm to your family, it's hard for you to let that thing go.
For
And
sure.
wound up going back to church and giving my life to the Lord about 19 or 20 years old. Started preaching when I was 24. Um, and been in ministry ever since. Through a lot of all of my mistakes, my adult life mistakes happened from behind the pulpit. Uh, and you think that because you pick up the Bible and the collar, that everything is going to just roll out the red carpet, but that's not the way things are. You still have to deal with life on life terms, and having good spiritual guiders or mentors is very key and important, especially in today's age.
Hmm. Now, you said that that happened with your grandmother, you kind of left the faith.
Yeah.
You came back though when you were an adult, 20 years old. What brought you back?
I got in trouble again. It was in the war on drugs era. I found myself in Queens Central bookings. Uh, and I remember getting in there, and I was in college, and I was a solopreneur, selling things that I shouldn't have been selling. And my first thing, when I got there, my first mindset was, next time I'm gonna do this different. I'm gonna do that different. Like I'm planning the next how I can get away with doing the wrong thing. But it so happened that God willed that I would be in there, which should have been a 24-hour stay. I was in there, wound up being in there for 2.5 days. And by the time that 2.5 days was over, I had submitted to God. This, first of all, there's not going to be next time. Um, and when we get in trouble, we lean to our faith, whichever the faith is that we grew up with. We usually lean into the faith, or we lean back to the old church that we grew up in, with something that's familiar, right?
Yeah.
So I had studied with friends that were Jehovah Witnesses. I studied with Muslims. I studied through my teenagers because this is all a part of my journey, all a part of me trying to figure it out, especially when I was done with the church stuff. But for me, and even in my adulthood, being a yoga instructor and a mindfulness coach, also, I've spoken at the Hindu temple. I've studied and had conversations contempor- contemporary, contemplative with other faiths, but Jesus, I am the way, and I hold fast to that.
Gotcha. Gotcha. You said all the mistakes that you've made were behind the or a whole bunch of mistakes you made were behind the pulpit.
Yeah,
Was it tough adjusting to that? Maybe was it the expectation of what life was supposed to be like when you get back there?
not
Or
not in the beginning. In the beginning, it was I just preached and I went home, but as I got older, like you think that the biggest thing that we are lied to about salvation is that we think that we're no longer going to have certain temptations, or we don't really talk about the discipline in our faith like we should. A lot of things we is swept away. Just pray, just believe, but there comes a level of discipline that even, and I tell people all the time, I know atheists who live cleaner lives than some Christians. They just have this moral compass, and it doesn't, morality and Christianity or followers of the way is two different things. You can have a great moral compass, and you can have somebody that's struggling, like the Corinthian church. The church of Corinth, Paul didn't admonish non-believers. He was talking to believers who was having sex and doing all kinds of immoral things, right? And he was like, "Hey, man, I need to calm down." And one of the biggest problems that I found is that I grew up where I couldn't be transparent. I wouldn't have been able to have this conversation before. But I'm mature now. I don't care what nobody thinks.
wow, yeah, I mean, back in the old days, right? It was
Yes.
there was a lot of judgment,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you don't realize how much judgment there is on the guy standing up there giving the sermon. The pastor. You are kind of expected to live a pretty much a perfect exemplary life, aren't you?
Some people expect that, yeah, but I've removed and I've got better at leveling out that these are the expectations. And yes, there is a level of discipline that comes with being a CEO, that comes with being a pastor, that comes with being responsible, comes with being in the service, right? So more so, if you are supposed to be a man or a woman of God who confesses that, there should be a level of accountability that you hold yourself to. However, there's also a level of when I'm in the middle of going through whatever challenges I am, whether it may be a divorce or separation or some type of addiction that I thought I was over, or when I'm struggling, because that's the word struggle. The struggle is I wake up in the morning desiring to do something, but I don't do it. Right. So that's a
Yeah.
real struggle. Like I can taste it. I made reservations. I can see it. I want to be there. Right. And I can call you and be like, Rory, I'm struggling. Can you pray with me, or can I come over but I can be transparent with you. What happens is in leadership, the model that we've created, and this is not God creation. This is the way that man created it. The model that we've created removes we removes that layer of being able to call somebody accountability partner, right? Because the person is like, well, wow, you calling me? And now when people, oh man, the pastor called and he's struggling, and now it becomes something other than. So most clergymen struggle internally, and they're loved by the community, but they have horrible relationships at times with their families, right? So
Yeah.
that says something, because the family sees what the community doesn't.
No, I understand, man. I hear what you're saying. Now you're a part-time pastor at this point?
Uh, I don't think I do anything part time.
Yeah. So let me rephrase the question. It's not your only job, right? You have
No, no,
other
no, no.
things that you do.
Yes, I do have other things that I would do, but I said that to say this because early on in ministry, I segmented everything. Right, I was a preacher, and then I'm a business person. Now everything is kind of like a master blend
Nice.
of all the things that I bring to the table, and it
Okay.
took me It took me a while, because a part of me when I walked in certain rooms, I didn't want people to know that I was a pastor.
I understand. I understand. That's who we're talking to on this show, brother. I know. I know it. No,
So,
I,
but
I know
now,
it.
you get to a certain age, and I realize that that's a part of who I am, and it's something that I can't get away from.
Right.
But yes, I do several other things. I've never wanted to make my money from church, from ministry, and I wanted to take care of my family from ministry only, because that stuff crumbles, man.
Yeah.
And we seen, like, during the pandemic. I've seen churches that was full, overextended. They didn't believe that they was overextended because the tithe and the offering and the corporate sponsors or whatever they had was enough to keep the lights on, but they never really paid the building off. They had nice cars there, and then boom, everything flips. The world is turned upside down. Now these mammoth buildings are empty, millions of dollars in debt. I had a couple of churches in Brooklyn close up out, crying. We're about to be foreclosed on. When I was coming up, the banks didn't foreclose on churches. They don't care now. It's just another piece of property. They'll
Right.
take that cathedral and turn it into a club.
Yeah. It'll be an In-N-Out burger by the end of the week, you know.
2 weeks.
So I know it. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. Okay. So what are some of the other things that you do? You've got a position outside of ministry that you do some work with, right? Tell everybody kind of like what you do outside of the ministry and how, your faith has impacted those things.
Well, I teach yoga and mindfulness through a company called Urban Yogis, which I am the director slash CEO, whatever you want to call it. Right? And I work with seniors and youth and young adults in low income community. Uh, and I've been able to blend what I know concerning scriptures and flexibility in the body and expansion of the mind. Um, that's been a wonderful work, because being able to see someone who can't lift their arm, and then you help them to get their motor skills back, or just help them overcome some mental blockage that they've been struggling with. And it's all by like simple breath work, or micro movements, and things as such. Working with youth and young adults when they're not teenagers yet is also is also great. Once they become teenagers, it's a little bit harder to get them on the mat, or you got to kind of bribe them. But it's just been a great experience for the last few years, about 10 or 12 years or so, that I've been working in that capacity. I also have a podcast production company, Principal Matter Production, where we produce podcast Walk in Victory, which is my baby, over 400 episodes, close to 200,000 downloads. Why and How Online, which is a co-host with another gentleman. We teach entrepreneurs how to stay relevant in the digital age. And then One Ministries podcast, we're just that One Ministries Network. I changed it from One Ministries podcast to One Ministries Network, because what we want to do is highlight. Right now, the only thing that's on is about 100 and so episodes, but it's all of my preaching. I want to highlight other ministries, and I want to do conversations like this with Christians and believers, and have like testimonials. And I'm also looking to even bring in persons who may want to get behind a camera or a microphone and interview. So it won't be centered. I don't, in other words, it doesn't have to be me centric. I really want the network to be robust and centered around Christian thought.
Nice. Nice. Looking forward to seeing
Well,
all that come together, man.
yeah. Well, I have to change that. I don't want, because want is a low vibrational word. One Ministries Network will be Christ centered,
Yep.
with testimonies and all of those things.
There you go. I like that. Hey, words have power, man. I understand.
Yes.
And so with these things going on, you also have a book coming out
Yes.
soon. You want to tell everybody, give a little taste of what that's going to be?
Well, the book is Awakening I Am. I Am. It talks about the I am itself, and really figuring out. It's showing people how to really use the tools that we use to help them become a better version of themselves. So we're looking at prompt engineering because it's internal awakening in an AI age. So the I am and AI is the flip thing, right? And we're looking at prompt engineering, and I'm breaking down prompt engineering models and showing how meditative engineering prompting for the subconscious mind. So we show those parallels.
Hmm.
The same way we speak to our AI agent is the same way that we should be speaking to our subconscious mind. The problem is that we don't spend time with our subconscious. In church, we're taught to pray, but we're not taught to be silent. And in other faiths, they're taught to be silent, but they're not taught to converse. So I'm blending using neuroscience, Christian thought, and what I know about AI prompt engineering, and blending all of these things together as I tell my personal story in each chapter, and showing how these things actually applied work.
Nice. Nice. And okay, now what's the timeline of the book? Because you made a lot of progress since last time I talked to you.
Yes, well, it's 15 chapters. That it ends with a 7-day IAMic challenge. So that's the actual bonus chapter, and the book is done. The book is done.
There you go.
I locked myself in the room, and I just said I have to finish. And I wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning, and just all this information, and just write. So it should be produced complete and ready to go in September. I turned 50 in September, so my goal is to have the book launch when I turn 50. So right around that area, I turned 50 September 16th. So if I'm off by a couple of days or so, that's all right. But I have everything completed. I've even done the re-edits. So with the AI agent, right? My agent, I name is Kai, and Kai is my personal assistant. Kai is able to edit the book for me without me having to sit there. And Kai's like, nah, that's not, I wrote everything, but when I read through it, Kai made some edits and some commas and some punctuation things that would have taken so much more time. And a huge portion of me wanting to write this book is because I grew up Pentecostal, and the way that we viewed social media, the way that we viewed anything media. We used to call it TV the one-eyed monster. All those little things like that's the devil, and everything is not the devil. And people are afraid. Some people have an open mind towards AI. Some people are afraid. They're looking at it like this is the revelation coming to life and the 777 and all those things. And I'm just saying, hey, we really sit back and think about it. The first prompt engineer was God.
It's a way to look at it.
He says, let there be prompting, and it was. So if we look at it from that lens, this is nothing new. The difference between the subconscious thought is that when we start to prompt the subconscious mind, it doesn't render the results as fast as an AI agent will. So if I prompt my AI agent properly, and then I ask it to scour your previous podcast and give me the best 5 guests that you had over the course of, it's going to do it in a minute and a half. But if I'm telling my subconscious mind, listen, I'm dealing with this addiction and I want to get over it, it's going to take some time. But we continue to prompt and we continue to go. And then with the repetition, the subconscious mind doesn't know how to differentiate between what's real and what's false. The subconscious mind only gives us what it is that it wants to please us, just as our AI agents wants to please us. So when we have all of these worldviews already, all of these inputs into the subconscious mind. And some of those things have to be rewired, which we call neuroplasticity. We're creating new or neural pathways. We're creating new neural pathways, whether it's in our finances, whether it's in our faith, whether it's in our relationships. We create these new neural pathways, but they have there's a system by which they're recreated.
Hmm.
And that's what this book is covering, the systems by which the new neural pathways is recreated. In Christianity, we call it faith. Be renewed, be transformed by the renewing of the mind. So, well, how do we renew the mind? We renew the mind through hearing the word. Be anxious for nothing, but in all things through what? Prayer and supplication, silence, right? And then we train the brain. Think on those things which are lovely. Think on those things which are pure. Think on those things which are a good report. When I first saw that, those scriptures, that's one of my favorite scriptures. When I first taught the scripture, I taught it without understanding the neuroscience behind it, but being able to really, really focus intentional thought towards those things which are lovely, it quiets the monkey brain, the anxious brain. Focus on those things which are pure. Focus on those things which are of good report. It quiets that brain because the mind can't be in three places at one time. The anxious mind is looking forward at tomorrow, afraid of seeing my brother because I took his birthright. So he stands in the back of the line, and the brother's anxious to see you, like is excited about it, and you're worried about, man, when my brother see me, that story in Genesis, right? Um, or the mind is focused on the past. The Israelites come out of Egypt, and they, instead of rejoicing in the moment that they're liberated, they're in the wilderness complaining that they don't no longer have fish and cucumber because they're looking back at the meal that they had. But when we bring the mind into the present, we cut off the thought of the fish and the cucumber, and we start to be grateful for the fact that we are in the wilderness, but we're free from slavery. We no longer worried about what the brother is going to say when we have our meeting. We in the present, and we're just grateful at the fact that I get a chance to see my brother again, regardless if we have to argue. So that's what this book is about.
Interesting. So if God was the first, you know, prompt engineer, so to speak, what do you say to someone who says, "Well, then doesn't that mean we're trying to act like God?"
Well, we and God breathed breath into the nostrils of man, and man became a living soul. But not only that, he calls us to be one with him. So if we're going to be light of the world, if we're going to be salt of the earth, the Jesus said to the apostles, "You see what I'm doing, you're going to be able to do more. I need you to believe it, right? And then I need you to prompt it. You're going to be able to speak to demons and they shall flee. Lay hands on people and they shall recover. And if you lay hands and nobody recovers, it's because you don't believe that you can do it. Because you don't believe that you're one with the Father. And you don't believe in the authority that He's giving you. If you don't speak to your life, that's why it's dangerous for us to be in bed with government, or it's dangerous for us to have a Christianity that's centered around locality, because we can't be the head and not the tail when we're borrowing money from the government and the government's saying, "Hey, I'll give you money to do outreach, but you can't invite people to your church. I'll give you food to hand out, but you can't mention Jesus." So then who's the God for that ministry?
Right. Hmm.
When he sanctifies us, he separates us so that we can be fully independent. And when we lose our independence, we lose our authority to prompt.
All right, man. Good answer. I like that. I'll take that. All right then. You with all these things that you do, with an awful lot of them, you wear your faith right out there in your sleeve. You know, you're not shy
Yes.
about it.
Yeah.
And you know, I think that's amazing. But has that caused you any problems? I mean, spiritual warfare is everywhere, you know, and very
Yeah.
often when people wear their faith on their sleeve, they don't experience any of that because, hey, you know, people are they know exactly what they're going to get. when they talk to you because they know what you're all about. But by the same token, putting it out there is kind of a recipe for, hey, if you want to throw some arrows, here I am. Have you
Yeah.
encountered any of that kind of thing in your life? And, if not, maybe seen it in the lives of others?
Oh, oh yeah. I went through a nasty church split. And the stuff that people said about me, you start to believe it. Like, whoa.
How about yourself, right? Yeah.
Yeah, like, whoa, where was I at when all this was going on? Now, here's the thing about splits, whether it's a church split, a business split, or anything like that. People say things when they're angry, but it all starts with some level of truth. So I can't get mad because everyone wants to be in fights. People get competitive and they want to win out. So people are not really thinking about your kids. They're not thinking about your wife. They're not thinking about your reputation. They just want to win at all costs. However, you can't get mad, and I had to mature to this. If you give them something to hold on to, and then they lie around everything else because you gave them something to hold on to. So the problem about wearing your faith on your sleeve is that sometimes if you're not conscious of what it is that you're doing or where you're at or whatever like that, you have to be conscious. Not worried, but just conscious. You can give somebody a stick to beat you with. And then that can cause problems later on down the line. Because everybody don't like you. Somebody's keeping a record and they're just waiting for opportunity to pounce. And even if they add monikers of untruths with the truth, it's like you're getting pulled over by a cop and the cop's like, you've been drinking? It's like, oh, I drink and drive every night. Well, that don't make it right. The one time, man, it's only one time. Nobody ain't say nothing to me last night. Well, tonight's your night, buddy.
There it is.
Yeah.
I understand. I understand. You talk about a church split.
Hmm.
Um, for folks who don't know what you're talking about, a church split is what exactly?
So I was pastoring a church. I never named the church. I was pastoring a church in New York City, and it turned into a horrible fight, and the church split. I went my way, they went their way, and nobody's no nothing good comes out of that.
Right.
Nothing good comes out of it, and a lot of people went there like it's people just scattered all over the place. It's just a bad situation for everybody.
So some of the congregation split too, then.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's something that has been kind of prominently talked about here on this show and also just out in, the social media world, especially. But that a friend of mine put up a post that said Christianity is the only religion out there where we eat our own.
Oh yeah, vultures.
Yeah, and it's so. What do you have to say to folks who are constantly battling amongst themselves instead of bringing this faith together? Because I mean, if it ever did come together, there's no way it loses another battle ever.
Well, the thing is, the church is unified. The church is one, but everybody that comes into the sanctuary is not a part of the church. So you have people that sits in positions of leadership in spiritual things that are not spiritual at all. So you'll never have the unity in the sanctuary setting, but the church is unified. And there's no way to really measure if a person really has a relationship with God because people can just look like they do. It's looking religious,
Sure.
pious, right? And Jesus talks about this with there's two men at the altar. One looks the part, and he's looking at the man, saying, "I'm glad I'm not like him." And the man on the floor is crying out, "Lord, just help me to get better." It's banging on his chest. He's crying, and the religious man is standing there saying, "I'm glad I'm not like him." And then Jesus said, "Who do you think is closer to the Father? The one with the arrogance, the religious arrogance, or the man that's crying for the Father's help?" And that's what happens. We've built the system that hierarchies are being served instead of serving. And because we have to serve these men, it causes division amongst the body because I want to get closer to the pastor. So, and sometimes leadership can be insecure. So they'll use people to go, oh, tell me what this person's saying about it. And it becomes, I mean, and this is just humans, right? This happens at work, it happens everywhere. But when it happens in the church, there's a spirit that's behind it. There's a spirit that's behind it that intensifies things, right? And and that it's sneaky. It doesn't happen on the surface. In the Passion of the Christ, when Judas was the movie, I'll never forget this. When Judas was going to kill himself, you seen that there was this thing right behind on the side of him walking. As he's walking, he's on the side, just like mimicking him, and that's where the spirit that causes the division is really really subtle and it's sneaky. And then when they get a stronghold, it erupts in the laws of polarization. Wherever there's love, there's also hate, but we can't measure neither one of them. And even in the book of Job, we see that Satan loves to worship. The angels didn't even know that he was there, but God did. What you doing? What you doing up here, man? I'm seeking who I might devour. I'm subtle. I'm looking for a fight.
Right. Hmm. So, when we're turning against one another, and when one, congregation's fighting with another one, when there's pastors online openly criticizing other pastors, for things that they've done, isn't that the devil getting in there, getting
It
into the
can be.
small cracks, and
Yeah.
launching spiritual warfare that way, you know?
Mhm.
Because it seems like divide and conquer is the most basic way to defeat a larger, force, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. In the book of Galatians, Paul, this is not new. So Paul experienced
Mhm.
it when the Israelite believers, the Jews for Jesus at that time. All of the Christians were Jewish, by the way. But anyway, the Jews for Jesus was attempting to make the Gentile believers get circumcised. They wanted them to get into their custom. And Paul's like, you've been liberated from the custom that you're trying to get them to sign into. But he said that there was some brethren who crept in unaware that tried to seek out the liberty that we have in Christ to bring us again back into bondage. But I gave them no room, not even 1 minute, for their reputation meant nothing to me. So, but when I left and I came back, I had to seek Peter to his face because I noticed that when Titus and the rest of my crew came, those same persons disassociated themselves. So now instead of us having a meeting internally, I now approach Peter and I'm saying, hey, what's going on with this? Because I thought we already addressed this. Now I have to address it openly. One, people don't like confrontation, but there's a healthy way to have confrontation. Two, if you see me doing something that you feel is not Christ-like, you don't go on social media and try to call me out. Now, I have a bigger problem, and people don't like when I say this, but I'm gonna say it because this is my philosophy and I live by it. I have a bigger problem with horrible doctrine than I do with a person living a horrible lifestyle. Because I think that's more detrimental when you're preaching another gospel. Because we can fix your lifestyle,
Okay.
but we
So
can't we can't fix shit. We can't fix bad doctrine.
give everybody an example of what you're talking about when you say horrible doctrine.
All right, so I grew up Pentecostal, and everything was a sin. We couldn't go to the movies. We couldn't watch TV. We couldn't. Everything is sin, 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 sin. Do not sit in the seat of the scornful. Do not do this. That's bad doctrine. I was literally when I first started preaching, I was literally scared to lose my salvation. So I prayed not because of gratitude. I prayed out of fear. I didn't want God to be mad at me.
That's not how it's supposed to work. Yeah, I understand what you
No,
mean.
that's
That's not what
that's
you're
the
going
best.
for.
Yeah, no, that's a horrible doctrine. And my favorite theologian, Martin Luther, uh, writes this letter to Erasmus, and it's talking about the bondage of the will and foreknowledge and free will and all this. So Erasmus thought was that free will means that the non-believer can will himself to spiritual things. And Luther's like, no, the non-believer, although their will is free, is only free to choose from the bondage that they live in. So they're free to choose from the dark choices that they have. Salvation, now they have more of a choice. So now they have two things to choose from. And that's the difference between a person that has been converted, is that now when we sin, and we will, we have a godly conscience that causes us to sorrow, right?
Right.
But when we're in darkness, we don't even realize that what we're doing is harmful. So we just doing
Right.
it.
You got to shed the light on it to see that it's actually a problem. Yeah. No, I
Yes.
got you, brother. Um, yeah, I love this. And I loved your answers. Very, little edgy. I like that. I kind of expected that from you, though. I know you got some opinions, and I love that, man. Because I think we need more people standing up, voicing opinion and not worrying about what everybody else is thinking and saying, look, this isn't right. This is not how this is supposed to be. With everything you have going on, I mean, with your One Ministries network and everything else that you're doing, from podcasting to writing to your work and your pastoring, you seem to have building discipleship covered. But is there something in particular that you do that you focus on to make sure that you are, in fact, building discipleship yourself and through what you're doing?
Yeah, I try to do check-ins, um, because we since COVID we didn't go back into the building, and I did that was intentional. I actually saw that, and I still believe this, and it's going to happen even more so now, that the church is going to change. The church in the way that we know it is going to change. You're going to have a handful of churches that still have large congregations, but it's going to retrace back to where it started from. And a lot of what we're going to be doing is going to be in digital space. So if you're listening, I advise you to invest in making sure that your digital blueprint is there. And having a Facebook Live is not a digital ministry. Just to say that. In fact, Facebook Live rules has changed. After 30 days, all of your content is going to be gone anyway.
Right.
So you have to have a team, and that's a part of discipleship, right? You have to have a team that's going to help you to reach more people. When I was coming up, you had a handful of people that can reach millions of people on television. Creflo Dollar, Copeland, TD Jakes, and some others. And I'm not talking about like on TBN or Prayer Network. I'm talking about on major networks, Joel Osteen, right? You had only a handful of people that can make that type of move. With the digital age, our discipleship, we can reach millions of people. I have Bible studies in Africa. Right? We have the ability to reach millions of people, and it doesn't cost that much. In fact, not only do you have the opportunity for discipleship if you build it right, you also have the opportunity to bring in revenue that we don't have to get on the backs of
Yeah.
poor people to do ministry. So, in order for us to be disciples, to build discipleship, we have to be creative. And in our creativity, we will also find that God rewards that. And He rewards that with substance. He takes from those that are not creative, that are not investing, and He gives to those that are.
Interesting. Do you have a video platform that you prefer using that you think is, worthwhile and okay, since Facebook Live doesn't count?
Well, I mean, it's good to you would have to, so that you, if you do live videos on Facebook Live, you would have to now take it off of Facebook. You can use Vimeo. Like we're building an Amazon Prime channel now. YouTube is also a nice place to house, but you ultimately want to house your video on your personal website, the church's website, because our if we're going to build disciples through digital ministry, we have to get them off the platform. We have to get the person that is watching that may have came across us. We use social media as a comma to draw people to our network.
Right.
And once they get to the website, once they get to they join your mailing list, you have the opportunity now to take that one message and minister to people all week long, breaking it down into 30-second clips, taking that message and now creating blogs out of it, taking that message and now, so we're using the system that the world built and we're using it for ministry purpose. And our stuff should look better than the world. Our stuff should sound clearer. We should really focus and be attentive to the message that we're putting out. And it's okay to hire somebody to help you do that. That's how we build disciples in this 20. I don't know if we're still in the 21st century or whatever century we're in, 2025. But that's how we build discipleship now, meeting people where they are. This young generation, it's not going to come walking through the doors. They've been unchurched. They have all of this stuff at the fingertips. They can't sit down for an hour and a half in a service. So we have to meet them where they are. And we have to be creative and do so. I'm training my 11-year-old son. This is his notebook. He has to come and take notes and learn how to edit videos. And and then he want no allowance. You get paid for a service.
Excellent. Make them work for it. No,
Yeah.
that's perfect. I love that advice. That people who are trying to do that, trying to build at that level, don't rely on the platform because too many people did that and have done that in the past. And as soon as the platform decides that they don't like what you're saying, you're done, and all your work is done, and it's all gone. And there's no appeal process. When Facebook decides you're out, you're out. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. When that day TikTok was down for an hour and people was crying, oh my buddy. And they're like, come on, man. You can't rely on that's their platform. That's your page on their platform. You have to build your own page.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. I love that, man. All right. I tell you what, we've talked about a lot of stuff, man, and uh,
Yes,
and
we
I,
did.
I mean, I appreciate you being able to go from like way over here to way over here. I knew you'd be awesome to come on and talk about this in this program, and you've given folks a lot of stuff. I want to give you the floor for a minute and just make sure that there isn't something you want to get out because you've given me your time. I want to make sure I get something out for you if I haven't yet. Is there anything that I didn't ask you, brother? Anything that you want to double down on or like a leave behind for everybody? You go for it. Wrap us up.
It's funny. I just thought about something because, and I write about this in the book too. I do so much that people are like, oh man, you just need to figure out one thing to do. No, that's actually no. Just the way that I process, right? But we just built an agent, our own AI agent, and it's called the Pathway Back Agent. Speaking of discipleship, so I wanted to. I had a friend that just came home from a long stint in incarceration, and he's working his way back. Technology change, everything is. So again, growing up in the war on drug era, I have a lot of friends that will be coming home now. We have guys who did 20, 25 years, and we were teenagers, so they're coming home now, 20 years old, 30 years old, coming home now. The world has totally changed from when they went in. And although they're in, they still get an idea of what's going on. They may know how to work some things, but in 9 times out of 10, they don't really, really fully understand it. So I created an agent called the Pathway Back Agent. Pathway Back Agent is for guys and girls, young ladies that are coming home, and it helps them with resume writing. So it's their personal agent, resume writing, finding support, local support. They can put in their zip code. It's ecumenical because at first it was going to be Christian based, And I'm like, I don't want to isolate. I don't believe that God is calling me to isolate people because they're not Christian. So it has, if they, for morning meditation, if they can choose atheist, Hindu, Christian, and it'll have meditations for them daily. So it becomes their guide. And then out of that agent, I'm like, oh wow, there's going to be millions of people that have to go back to work that hasn't worked in a while. So we have a set along next to that agent, pathway back for people who've been out of work for a long time to help them to understand AI, help them. It has all these tutorials in there. And then we have one for veterans, and we have one for entrepreneurs. But the entrepreneurs and all the pathway back is for the veterans, veterans formerly incarcerated, and people that are going back into the workspace. Then we have our entrepreneurial agents, which houses 3-day email challenge, help you build out your email list. 3-day funnel building challenge, help you to build funnels that will last, and just give you lessons on all those things. And all this too will be out this year.
Nice. All right, we're looking and waiting for that then.
Yeah.
All right, beautiful. Where can folks reach you? Where can they find out more about all the stuff you have coming, your book and the new, thing you just were talking about, all this other stuff? I mean, because you're going to have a new project by the time I hang up with
Yes, I am.
you. So, where can everybody find out more about whatever it is that NaRon has going on next?
Walkinvictory.me, walkinvictory.me. I had, and I'm going to say this because if you're listening to me and you're like me and you do a whole lot of other things, I had separate websites for everything. Now what I'm doing is I'm creating the Walk in Victory Ecosphere. That one website is going to house everything in there, so I don't have to have all of these different things that I have to upload all the time or change all the time. So it's still the book. Everything is going to be on there within 2 weeks. The agent stuff is going to be on there within 2 weeks. We're going to be coaching for ministries that want to build a digital blueprint. We're going to have those opportunities if you're listening. So all of that is really, really right there. We're like 2 weeks away. I was working on the website with the developer all weekend long, but it's up there. And if you want to be a guest on the Walk in Victory podcast or One Ministries Network, info@walkinvictory.me. You can email me and let me know that you heard me here on this show, and we'll be so happy to get back in touch with you.
Sounds wonderful. All right, beautiful, man. Thank you for all of this stuff. NaRon, you've been amazing. You really have. And just thank you for coming on, sharing everything you have on just some very different topics than what we normally get to talk about. I really appreciate you being here, and God bless you, man.
God bless you too.
Uh, Folks, it is time. It is time to wake up the lions. More than that, it's time for you to take your rightful place with your brothers and sisters and let them hear you roar. The world is ready. So are you. You just have to believe it.